So what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and it's that time of month because the month of April is come and gone. It feels like it just started yesterday, but it's time to do my rankings and my reviews for all of the movies I saw that were new releases during the month of April. And in the month of April, I saw a ton of new movies. I mean, a lot of streaming movies too, but they're not included in this list. If you ever want to see a list that includes some of those, or maybe separate lists just so you can get some streaming titles, comment down below, let me know. Maybe I'll start throwing them in, make separate videos, something like that. But this is just going to be for the new releases I saw. And over the month of April, I managed to see 9 new movies in theaters. I got to basically all the ones I wanted to see besides Godzilla and Ghostbusters, but I didn't really have much interest to seeing either of those, but maybe I'll get around to them at some point. But these are the ones I got to, all 9 of them. And as always, this is just going to be my opinion of the 9 movies I saw in the order I like them from least favorite to favorite. It's not an objective list of what I think the best movies are, movies that I think other people will agree with. This is just my list, so your opinions may not align to the movies I agree with and the ones I liked and disliked, but this is my list, starting from the movies I disliked the most to the movies I liked the most for all 9 of them for the month of April. And as a preface, as always, I've already done all of these movies reviewed individually, so if you want to check out any of these more in depth, get my ideas on why, some of the specifics of the movies, I'll put a link to a playlist for my 2024 reviews at the end of the video. You can check out any individual ones you want to see, but this is just going to be a brief overview. So let's get into it, starting with number 9. So starting at number 9, my least favorite movie for the month of April, and it's no surprise to anybody who watched any of my reviews, it's actually Civil War by Alex Garland. And I'm no stranger to the fact this is a completely divisive movie. It's kind of ironic that it's called Civil War because the backlash we've been getting on the internet, people who like it, people who hate it, people do not see eye to eye in this movie at all. And for me personally, this is one of those movies that just did not work for me at all. I mean, this is one of the most divisive movies I've posted a review about this year. I have people coming at me in the comment sections calling me a clout hunter, saying I didn't understand the movie. There was a bunch of people just taking personal offense to the fact I didn't like this movie. I understand the point of the movie. I just didn't get anything profound out of it. I understand the message of this movie. There's journalism impacts, the importance of the press, a non-biased view of what it would be like to be on the surface for a civil war. And to me, it just wasn't profound. I didn't care because when I went into this movie, I wanted political commentary. I wanted them to take a stance on the division of this country, ways to fix it, things that people don't see eye to eye. And I wanted something profound that I could say, oh, there's commentary I've never heard. I thought this was a good medium for them to address things. They really just didn't take the angle of it. I know some people really like the fact that this movie was apolitical, but for me, it didn't work. I got nothing out of this movie. I thought it was boring. I know it was filmed very well. The sound design was well. There's a bunch of people in the comments telling me how good this movie was made. And I agree, it is a well-made movie. I just didn't like it. And there's a lot of other people that didn't like it. Some people love this movie. That doesn't take away from the experience other people had. But to me, this was easily one of the most forgettable movies I saw this month. Like, I have little interest in rewatching this movie. Maybe at some point, just because if I get peer pressured enough, maybe I'll feel obliged to give this another chance, see if there's anything more profound to it. But for me, this is just a movie I got nothing out of. And coming in right behind it at number 8 is another movie that I thought was just very forgettable, and that was Arcadian, the movie that was kind of like A Quiet Place starring Nicolas Cage. And at the time of doing this review, I didn't even give it a bad review. I gave some pros, some cons, things like that, but this movie has aged pretty bad in my mind. Like, I couldn't tell you any of these characters' names. I couldn't really tell you the pacing of this movie, like what happened. I feel like this was the most forgettable movie I saw this month. And that's kind of a problem. The reason I kind of knocked it down a little bit in front of or behind a couple of titles is because this is probably the movie I would be the least likely to rewatch on this entire list. Even in front of Civil War, I would go back and watch Civil War and give that a chance in front of this movie because this movie, kind of to the contrary of Civil War, I just think was not very well produced. Like, the shaky cam was completely abundant in this movie. You could barely see anything because it was pitch black. Nick Cage is barely in the movie. I liked it for what it was, probably because I came from Civil War at the time. So like, I kind of just wanted a change of tone, but I don't know. To me, this movie was just entirely forgettable. Not the worst movie ever, and in some months, maybe it would be a little bit higher, but I don't know. Just a movie I have no interest in rewatching. And that leads us to number 7, which surprisingly, if you followed any of the videos in the comment section, you'd think this one would be lower, but it's first Omen. When I think about it, honestly, this actually might be the most divisive movie I reviewed this year. This is another one of the ones like Civil War. You go to the comment section, it's an absolute bloodbath. You have people saying it's great, it's well made, I loved it, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know scary movies. You have other people thinking it's boring as shit, which is kind of what I thought, honestly. Like, I've already given the context to people that I'm not really huge into religious horror as like a sub-theme. It's not my favorite of all of the ones. So to me, it has to be pretty good and stand out for me to almost take into that subgenre to begin with. So it didn't really work with me, but I know some people absolutely love this movie. And a lot like Civil War, I can acknowledge this movie's well made. I thought the cinematography was pretty good, aside from like the shitty, grainy, like orange overlay they put to it. I don't really like when they do that to make it look old. kind of took me out of it because you could tell they dubbed it over in post. It wasn't like a natural lens filter they used. I thought the audio was pretty good. I thought there were some actual good scares, as I mentioned in the third scene, at the third act, I mean. But to me, I just didn't care by the time I got there. I mean, I saw the original Omen a long, long time ago, and I thought it was all right. I wasn't as fanatical on it as other people. I'd have to rewatch it. And I know there's some things they retcon in this movie people didn't like with the original story. I really didn't like the fact that they didn't play into a lot of accidental deaths like the original Omen in this movie. I thought it was particularly slow. I thought it was just jump scares thrown in for no reason. I mean, I got slandered for this movie. People hated the fact that I didn't like this movie. I still don't like this movie. Again, maybe I'd give it a rewatch at some time if I ever did an Omen series. But to me, the reason I put this above Arcadian, even though at the time I rated Arcadian higher, is that I can respect this movie as being a better made movie than Arcadian. Even though at the time, I think because of my mental state, I liked Arcadian better. I definitely think this is the better movie. And maybe I have grown to appreciate a couple of the scenes, the cinematography, the scares, some of the memorable visuals that stick with you in this movie over that movie, because I don't remember anything that happened in that movie, but still definitely not a movie I was particularly fond of. And again, maybe in another month I would have liked this movie more, but I watched a lot of movies I actually really liked this month, so it finds its place at 7. Coming in at number 6, the movie I enjoyed a little bit more than the first Omen was the creature feature Sting about the mutating spider in the New York apartment complex. And I personally enjoyed this movie for what it was. It was kind of a low budget creature feature, obviously with a CGI'd spider that kept getting bigger and bigger. And part of the reason I think I've kind of took a liking to this movie is they really don't make movies like this anymore. They really don't make creature features, especially that make it to theaters, it feels like. I particularly hate spiders. I went into this movie kind of expecting to wince a lot. It kind of didn't do anything for me in that regard. I thought the dynamic between the family of the girl and the father and the mom and stuff was the most interesting part of this movie, more so than the spider. Not that I dislike the spider stuff, but I actually thought the family dynamic they had, the visuals in this movie were pretty cool, especially for, again, a low budget creature feature. I thought the cinematography was completely dope. They had the lighting blacked out and they'd have shadows and light coming in that would illuminate plants that looked like spider outlines, things like that to keep you on your toes. Pleasantly surprised seeing this movie. I had little expectations for it. Just wanted to check it out because I do like creature features. But yeah, it kind of sits in at 6. It's not, too far above or below the ones around it. I just thought it was kind of right in the middle for, the kids say mid. It's pretty mid movie. I just didn't like it or dislike it as much as the ones ahead of it or below it. So when we get to number 5, we're getting to a territory of movies I actually really liked a good bit. I thought all these movies did things really well. Some of them have more negatives than other, but for the most part, I liked all of the movies in the top 5 in one way or another. And at number 5 is the most recent movie I saw this month, and one of the bigger surprises of the month, because I went into this movie with zero expectations. That was Challengers, the tennis movie starring Zendaya. And since I see a lot of movies in theaters, this was a movie I saw the trailer for a good bit. I probably saw this trailer 5 to 10 times, and every time I watched it, it did nothing for me. I expected to not like this movie or think it was completely forgettable, but I was pleasantly surprised at how much I actually liked this movie, at least the first half of the movie. I thought the cinematography is really cool, the way they have the tennis shots. They have the 3D elements of the ball coming at you, how you're kind of down on the court with the people. I thought the acting in this movie was great, including Zendaya. I thought this was kind of like a breakout role for her, and her to separate herself a little bit as kind of being an overrated actress in a lot of people's eyes. I thought the tennis stars were great in this. I thought they were completely believable. Like I said in my review, I couldn't tell if these guys were tennis pros or not, if they were trained, if it was CGI'd. I believe the fact that they played tennis. I thought the acting was really cool in that regard. I liked the sound effects. I know some people came in my comments and said they didn't like, kind of the synth music they overlaid the tennis matches with, because it does get pretty loud, but it didn't take me out of it. I liked it, thought it was kind of a momentum builder. I don't know. I really liked a lot about this movie, and if it wasn't for the final hour, 30 minutes of this movie could be even higher. But again, I saw a lot of movies I liked this month. I thought this movie fizzled out a little bit halfway through, when the love triangle starts to lose steam a bit. But I definitely like this movie. I think it's a unique movie. It's a memorable movie, and I'll probably rewatch this movie at some time. And coming in at number 4, just a little bit ahead of Challengers, there was a little bit more I liked in this one than the other one, was The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And what I really liked about this movie is when I saw it at a screener was that another movie I went into with little expectations. I'd never seen the trailer, didn't know a whole lot about it. I really liked the cast in this movie. I thought Henry Cavill does great. Thought Alan Richardson does good for what he's in. And for a Guy Ritchie film, if you're familiar with it, I thought this movie was really funny at the time I saw it. I don't know why, but there was something about this movie that had me smiling, laughing the whole way through. And this movie would be interchangeable with Challengers, in my opinion. If Challengers finished a little bit stronger, it would have been a real debate. I thought this movie finished stronger. The action in this movie is really good as well. I just thought this movie didn't fizzle out quite as hard. I mean, Challenger might be a little bit more memorable when I'm thinking about it now. in this movie because this movie's a little bit more generic in what it's doing with the World War II tale, all the things like that. But I definitely still really liked this movie. I thought this movie was a good time. I definitely had no expectations for this movie, which helped the cause. And for a movie that's about World War II, I'm not going to come out and say I hate war movies. I definitely like some war movies, but it's another one of those movies that's not in my genre house at all. I'm a big thriller watcher, scary movie watcher. I don't watch a ton of war movies. I do have my memorable ones, Saving Private Ryan, Yuri, some of the more known ones. But I kind of went into this with a way to kill a night because I had a free screening pass to see it. And I was pleasantly surprised how much I liked this one, so it's coming in at number 4. When we get to the top 3, 2 of the next 3 are kind of similar in tone, the kind of way they play out, but I kind of liked one more than the other one. Number 3, though, is going to be Boy Kills World. And during my review for this movie, I made it abundantly clear that this was a movie that I was totally on the fence for at least the first half of the movie. I went into it wanting to like it. After about 20 minutes, I was hating it. And somehow a flip switched. I don't know what did it. And I just bought into this movie, and from that point on, I absolutely love the rest of this movie from 20 minutes on. This movie has this weird underlying tonal difference where you have like the comedic relief of Archer in your ear the whole movie because he's like an 8-year-old with an inner monologue who's a grown boy now. And then you have this incredibly violent action, I said, which probably should have been like an NC-17 movie. I didn't know anything about this movie. I purposely don't watch trailers nowadays. I think they spoil too much of the movies. But somehow I came out of this movie really liking it. And what's really putting it up this high, at the time I did my review, I said I would go out and buy it, but I also might hate it the next day because this movie had me so confused. I had to give this movie numerous days in my head to like kind of, waft at if like I liked it or not. I didn't know what I thought when I left the theaters. I just know that was one of the most unique, if not the most unique experiences I had this year. And what definitely puts it at number 3 for me is this movie is incredibly memorable. The reason I'm going to buy this movie is that I don't know if I've ever seen a movie like this. I've seen a lot of movies that have tried to do things like this, like the movie Kick-Ass, how you have incredibly high over-the-top violence, almost comedic violence because it's so raunchy over the top. It's like almost unbelievable with a comedic undertone the whole rest of the movie. But something about this movie, even though the comedy didn't land, I thought the action scenes and the way they blend it, some of the dialogue they have, I thought it was incredibly creative and incredibly memorable. So that's why this movie's number 3. Had a great time watching this movie. And as I said at number 2, this movie is actually very similar to number 3 in that it was an incredibly over-the-top violent movie. Except this movie replaced the comedic relief element of the movie that didn't really work with me in the other movie with like profound family stories, like A Tale of Overcoming, righteousness. That was Monkey Man. And 2024's theme to me must either be I didn't watch the trailer or I saw the trailers and I didn't think it looked very good. Because when this movie was getting like super gassed up by everybody that Jordan Peele was involved, I saw a trailer for this movie and I thought it looked incredibly stupid. There was a guy walking around with a monkey mask. I thought the majority of the movie he was going to be wearing the monkey mask. And it seemed kind of like an Indian take on The Raid where he was just going to be going around beating the shit out of everybody, which he does at some point. But I thought this movie's story, particularly the touching elements of it, how profound it was. I thought this movie was very memorable because the story was so good. Prior to Boy Kills World, this would have been the most like unique experience I had in the movie theater probably because when I went into this movie, like again, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I had an absolute blast with this movie. This was the movie that had me smiling cheek to cheek. I absolutely raved about this movie in my review. I thought this was at the time the funnest movie I saw this year. And I think this movie's just absolutely badass at everything. I think it's incredibly well acted. I love the cinematography of this movie, how it looks. I said this was like the most beautiful film of the year. I saw a lot of reviews and comments saying that they didn't like the way this was filmed and they didn't think it looked good. It was too dark. It was too grainy. They thought there was shaky cam. I love the fight scenes, the way it was filmed over the shoulder and everything. Felt like you were really in on it. I thought it all worked. I thought it was profound. I thought this movie had a great ending. I absolutely am sold on this movie. I said I would buy this movie. I've referred everybody to see this movie who, I've seen this year. I've said like, go see Monkey Man. It's the movie I keep bringing up to everybody aside from number 1. But this is a movie I absolutely love. And when I was making this list and I was kind of reviewing some of the movies, Boy Kills World is inflated a little bit because I thought it was so memorable and it's so fresh in my mind. But on a lot of other months, every other month this year, honestly, prior to this month, Monkey Man would be number 1, if not for number 1. And here we are at number 1, my favorite movie for the month of April. And this will be no surprise to anybody. People who follow my channel, people who like my subgenres of things I'm into particularly, people who watch my reviews, you'll probably know immediately what number 1 is going to be. My favorite movie for the month of April and for the year so far is Abigail. Now this was a movie, about the ballerina vampire. I saw this at an early release screening, so I was super excited to get into it a couple days early. I was looking forward to it for a couple of weeks. And this was another movie I saw the trailer for a handful of times, 5 to 10 times in the movie theaters. And I definitely think this movie's trailer shows you too much. I mean, I think it's a better movie, Enjoy Blind. But I thought the trailer looked really good. I thought it was crafted really good. The tone of it was good. The music was good. I liked everything about it going into the movie. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how much I actually liked this movie when I was in it. Some of the times when you have these vampire movies, these comedies, these like horror comedies where you have like comedic relief to horror, they don't know how to blend it and the whole movie just becomes an on-running gag joke. I thought this movie had the scary elements it's going for with a vampire, but I thought the comedy was great in this movie. I had to laugh in this movie every 3 to 5 minutes. My theater was in an uproar. Like everybody I saw this with and the screening was clapping at the end of it. Everybody loved it. What I really like about this movie is that this movie does everything I want in a horror movie that's supposed to be in this subgenre of like horror comedy, a vampire movie. I mean, for a vampire movie, this movie has everything I want. It has fun, has super bloody kills. It's not too serious of a tone, so it's got a comedic relief tone, but the comedic relief works. I thought the premise is unique. I mean, a ballerina vampire, a little 12-year-old girl, who's seen that before? And I thought this movie was incredibly well acted. I thought the girl who plays Abigail is absolutely great for a child actor. I thought all of the actors and actresses are great. Melissa Barrera. I thought more than anything, when I think of movies, I'm not good with character names. I remember every single character in this movie right now and what they did, like what their personality was, like what they're trying to sell. And to me, that always adds a layer to a movie that makes a movie incredibly memorable, incredibly fun. And for me, that's what I would say in this movie. Abigail was the most fun I've had in the movie theater this year. I don't see enough movies like that anymore where I just leave the theater smiling cheek to cheek. It was one of those movies I instantly thought, do I want to see this again when it releases, like right after today, because I saw it early? And I don't know. It's just a movie that's sticking with me. It's my favorite movie of the year so far. So coming in at number 1 this year, Abigail. There you have it, guys. All 9 movies I saw during the month of April. How I rank them, least favorite to favorite. Don't get angry. It's just my opinion. If anything, comment it down below. Let me know what your order would be, especially for these movies. Maybe some movies I didn't get to. I want to see what other people liked. Comment down below. Let me know if you agree, disagree, all of that. And let me know if you'd ever want to see a list maybe included in this or a new list of other movies I've seen during the months, like streaming movies maybe. Not new releases, but movies that are more accessible to the average person that you could go watch. If you haven't subscribed already, what the hell are you waiting for? Click down below, do that. And aside from that, that's all I got for my monthly recap, guys. So I'll see you guys in the next review video. Peace.